Welcome to today's reading from the Krishna book. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We are on chapter 47, delivery of the message of Krishna to the gopis. Last week we finished when Akrur reached Vrindavan. Akrur is the son of Krishna's father's elder brother. When the gopis saw Uddhav, they observed that his features almost exactly resembled those of Krishna, and they could understand that he was a great devotee of Krishna's. His arms were very long and his eyes were just like the petals of the lotus flower. He was dressed in yellow garments and wore a garland of lotus flowers. His face was very beautiful, having achieved the liberation of Sarupya and thus having the same bodily features as the Lord. Uddhav looked absence, the gopis coming dutifully to visit in Krishna's absence, the gopis had been coming dutifully to visit Mother Yashoda's house. I spoke wrong in the beginning. It's Uddhav who has reached Vrindavan, and Uddhav is the cousin of Krishna, not Akrur. Yashoda's house early in the morning. They knew that Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yashoda were always grief-stricken, and they had made it their first duty to come and pay their respects to the most exalted elderly personalities of Vrindavan. Seeing the friends of Krishna, Nanda and Yashoda would remember Krishna himself and be satisfied. And the gopis also would be pleased by seeing Nanda and Yashoda. When gopis saw that Uddhav was representing Krishna even in his body features, they thought he must be a soul completely surrendered unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They began to contemplate. Who is this boy who looks just like Krishna? He has the same eyes like lotus petals, the same raised nose and beautiful face, and he is smiling in the same way. In all respects, he resembles Krishna, Shyamsundar, the beautiful blackish boy. He is even dressed exactly like Krishna. Where has this boy come from? Who is the fortunate girl who has him for her husband? Thus they talked among themselves. They were very anxious to know about him, and because they were simple, unsophisticated village girls, they surrounded Uddhav. When the gopis understood that Uddhav had a message from Krishna, they became very happy and called him to a secluded place and offered him a nice sitting place. They wanted to talk with him very freely, and did not want to be embarrassed before unknown persons. They welcomed him with polite words in great submissiveness. We know that you are a most confidential associate of Krishna, and that he has therefore sent you to Vrindavan to give solace to his father and mother. We can understand that family affection is very strong, even when great sages who have taken to the renounced order of life cannot give up family affection cent per cent. Sometimes they think of their family members. Krishna has therefore sent you to his father and mother. Otherwise, he has no further business in Vrindavan. He is now in town. What does he have to know about Vrindavan village or the cows' pasturing grounds? These are not at all useful for Krishna because he is now a man of the city. Surely he has nothing to do with persons who do not happen to be his family members. Friendships with those outside the family continue as long as there is some selfish interest in them. Otherwise, why should one bother about those outside the family? Specifically, a person attached to the wives of others is interested in them as long as there is a need of sense gratification, like the bumblebees who have interest in the flowers as long as they want to take the honey out of them. It is psychologically very natural that a prostitute does not care for her paramour as soon as he loses his money. Similarly, when the citizens find that a government is incapable of giving them full protection, they leave the country. A student, after finishing his education, gives up his relationship with the teacher and the school. A priest, after taking his reward from the worshipper, gives him up. When the fruit season is over, birds are no longer interested in the tree. Just after eating in the house of a host, the guest gives up his relationship with him. After a forest fire, when there is a scarcity of green grass, deer and other animals give up the forest. And so a man, after enjoying his girlfriend, gives up his connection with her. In this way, all the gopis indirectly accused Krishna by citing many examples. Uddhav understood that the gopis of Vrindavan were all simply absorbed in the thought of Krishna and his childhood activities. While talking about Krishna with Uddhav, they forgot all about their household business. They even forgot about themselves as their interest in Krishna increased more and more. One of the gopis named Srimati Radharani was so much absorbed in the thoughts of Krishna by dint of her personal touch with him that she actually began to talk with a bumblebee, which was flying there and trying to touch her lotus feet. While the other gopis were talking with Krishna's messenger Uddhav, Srimati Radharani took that bumblebee to be a messenger from Krishna and began to talk with it as follows. Bumblebee, you are accustomed to drinking honey from flower to flower, and therefore you have preferred to be a messenger of Krishna, who is of the same nature as you. I can see you on your mustaches, the red powder of kunkuma which was smeared on the flower garland of Krishna, while it was pressed against the breast of some my competitor. You feel very proud because of having touched that garland, and your mustaches have become red. You have come here carrying a message for me, anxious to touch my feet. But my dear bumblebee, let me warn you, don't touch me. I don't want any messages from your unreliable master. You are the unreliable servant of an unreliable master. It may be that Srimati Radharani purposely addressed the bumblebee sarcastically in order to indirectly criticize the messenger Uddhav. Like other gopis, Srimati Radharani saw that Uddhav's bodily features resemble Krishna's, but also saw Uddhav as being equal to Krishna. Indirectly, therefore, she indicated that Uddhav was an unreliable, just as Krishna himself. Srimati Radharani wanted to give specific reasons why she was dissatisfied with Krishna and his messenger. She addressed the bumblebee. Your master Krishna is exactly of your quality. You sit down on a flower and then after taking little honey, you immediately fly away and sit in another flower and taste. You are just like your master Krishna. Only once did he give me the chance to taste the touch of his lips, and then he left us altogether. I also know that the goddess of fortune Lakshmi, who is always in the midst of the lotus flower, is constantly engaged in Krishna's service, but I do not know how she became so captivated by Krishna and why she is so much attached to Krishna, although she knows his actual character. Maybe she is so much captivated by Krishna's sweet words that she cannot understand his real character. As far as we are concerned, we are more intelligent than the goddess of fortune. We are not going to be cheated anymore by Krishna or his messengers. According to expert opinion, Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, is a subordinate expansion of Srimati Radharani. As Krishna has numerous expansions of Vishnu Murtis, so his pleasure potency Radharani also has innumerable expansions of goddesses of fortune. Therefore, the goddess of fortune Lakshmi ji is always anxious to be elevated to the position of the gopis. Srimati Radharani continued, You foolish bumblebee, you are trying to satisfy me and get a reward by singing the glories of Krishna, but it is useless attempt. We are bereft of all our possessions. We are always away from our homes and families. We know very well about Krishna. We know even more than you. So whatever you make up about him will be old stories to us. Krishna is now in the city and is better known as the friend of Arjun. He now has many new girlfriends who are no doubt very happy in his association. Because the lusty burning sensation has been satisfied by Krishna, they are now happy. If they go there and glorify Krishna, they may be pleased to reward you. You are just trying to pacify me by your behavior as a flatterer, and therefore you have put your head under my feet. But I know the trick you are trying to play. I know that you are a messenger coming from an even greater trickster, Krishna. Therefore, please leave me. I can understand that you are expert in reuniting two opposing parties, but at the same time, you must know that I cannot play my reliance upon you, nor upon your master, Krishna. We left our husbands, children, and relatives only for Krishna. Yet he did not feel any obligation in exchange. At last he left us forlorn. Do you think we can place our faith in him again? We know that Krishna cannot live for a moment without the association of young women. That is his nature. He is finding difficulty in Mathura because he is no longer in the village among innocent cowherd girls. He is in aristocratic society and must be feeling difficulty in making friendships with other young girls. Perhaps you have come here to canvass again or to take us there. But why should Krishna expect us to go there? He is greatly qualified to entice all other girls, not only in Vrindavan or Mathura, but all over the universe. His wonderful enchanting smile is so attractive, and the movements of his eyebrows are so beautiful that he can call for any woman from the heavenly middle or plutonic planets. Even Mahalakshmi, the greatest of all the goddesses of fortune, hankers to render him some service. In comparison to all these women of the universe, what are we? We are very insignificant. Krishna advertises himself as magnanimous, and he is praised by great saints. His qualifications would be perfectly utilized if he would only show us some mercy, for we are so much downtrodden and neglected by him. You poor messenger, you are only a less intelligent servant. You do not know much about Krishna, how ungrateful and hard-hearted he has been, not only in this life but in previous lives as well. We have heard this all from our grandmother, Pauranmashi. She has informed us that Krishna was born in a Kshatriya family previous to this birth and was known as Ramchandra. In that birth, instead of killing Vali, an enemy of his friend, in the manner of a Kshatriya, he killed him just like a hunter. A hunter takes a secure hiding place and then kills an animal without facing it. So Lord Ramchandra as a Kshatriya should have fought with Vali face to face, but instigated by his friend, he killed him from behind a tree. Thus he deviated from the religious principles of Kshatriya. Also, he was so attracted by the beauty of Sita that he converted Surpnakha, the sister of Ravan, into an ugly woman by cutting off her nose and ears. Surpnakha proposed an intimate relationship with him, and as a Kshatriya, he should have satisfied her. But he was so henpecked that he could not forget Sita Devi and converted Surpnakha into an ugly woman. Before that birth as a Kshatriya, he took his birth as a Brahmana boy known as Vamandev and asked charity from Bali Maharaj. Bali Maharaj was so magnanimous that he gave him whatever he had. Yet Krishna as Vamandev ungratefully arrested him just like a crow and pushed him down to the Patal kingdom. We know all about Krishna and how ungrateful he is. But here is the difficulty. In spite of being him so cruel and hard-hearted, it is very difficult for us to give up talking about him. And it is not only we who are unable to give up this talk, but great sages and saintly persons also engaged in talking about him. We the gopis of Vrindavan do not want to make any more friendships with this blackish boy, but we do not know how we shall be able to give up remembering and talking about his activities. Since Krishna is absolute, his so-called unkind activities are as relishable as his kind activities. Therefore, saintly persons and great devotees like the gopis cannot give up Krishna in any circumstances. Lord Chaitanya therefore prayed, Krishna, you are free and independent in all respects. You can either embrace me or crush me under your feet. Whatever you like, you may make me broken-hearted by not letting me see you throughout my whole life. You are my only object of love. In my opinion, Srimati Radharani continued, one should not hear about Krishna because as soon as a drop of the nectar of his transcendental activities is poured into the air, one immediately rises above the duality of attraction and rejection. Being completely freed from the contamination of the material attachment, one gives up attachment for this material world, including family, home, wife, children, and everything else, materially dear to every person. Being deprived of the material acquisitions, one makes his relatives and himself unhappy. Then he wanders in search of Krishna, either as a human being or in other species of life, even as a bird, and voluntarily accepts the profession of a mendicant. It is very difficult to actually understand Krishna, his name, his qualities, his forms, his pastimes, his paraphernalia, and his entourage. We will continue from here on tomorrow, and we've just been reading the lamentation and the grief of the gopis and the chief gopi Radharani herself regarding Krishna, that how Krishna has left them broken-hearted after spending his childhood with them, and they can't see anything beyond him. And now in the last few lines it was being confirmed that once anyone hears about Krishna, one immediately rises above the duality of attraction and rejection. So so far there's a lot of contradictions going on here. So when we carry on reading tomorrow, we will understand more about this. So Uddhavji is hearing the message of the gopis very carefully till now, and soon he will be delivering the message of Krishna to the gopis. Thank you for watching Narayan Keshav Prabhu. Hare Krishna.